are live.
Good morning, everybody. For the record, this is the Thursday, June 9th regular meeting of the Financial Advisory Commission being conducted by Zoom. And with us today, we have, in addition to me, Fred Sussman, Chair, we have Commission members Patrick Bannon, Bob Burton, Ed Meehan, and Frank Brown. We also have Finance Director Jody Dickinson, City Manager David Chero, Madeline Horo from Annapolis TV, and Kim Moronsky from the Finance Department. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I sent out an agenda, but before we go to approve the agenda, I'd like to just make a few comments and propose an addition. First, item 4A.B.1 says that the city manager will provide a report on the collective bargaining agreements. From the email I sent out yesterday and what you probably saw in the newspaper, collective bargaining agreements have been negotiated with the 4 unions. We did not receive them in sufficient time for us to, as a commission, to be able to review and discuss them today. So we're going to need to have a special meeting, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We have a date. So the collective bargaining agreement report from the city manager, I suspect, will be perfunctory. And during that, we can talk about the timetable for when the commission need to conduct a special meeting and have a report or recommendation available for the city council. The other item, I'd like to add a new item 6A under new business for a brief discussion about the Maryland Public Information Act request that was submitted to the commission the past couple of days. So, and finally, under Roman numeral 7, add a B for establishing a date for a special meeting to discuss the collective bargaining agreements. So subject to those revisions to the, or does anybody else have any revisions or corrections to the agenda? Bob?
No revisions or corrections other than when we do get to the part of the agenda concerning the PIA request to the fact, I would like to have a member of the Office of Law present for that discussion for any questions that may arise. So if David or you could reach out to the Office of Law and ask if someone from that office can be present in this meeting at that appropriate time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Just for the record, I see that Alderman Tierney has joined us and Commission Member Jim Cardillo has joined us. Welcome to both of you as well. So,
Morning.
good morning. Good morning.
Excuse my lateness.
No problem.
Good morning.
Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
So move.
Moved by Bob Burton, seconded by Frank Brown. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda as revised is approved. I sent out with the meeting agenda 4 sets of commission minutes that Kim was kind enough to prepare and submit. She subsequently, and they are for April 14th and then May 5th, 12th, and 17th. She subsequently noted a typographical issue with the minutes for May 17th, corrected them, and sent them out as revised. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve those 4 sets of minutes collectively. I hear none, so I'll entertain any comments first before anybody chooses to make a motion. No comments. Then let's go one by one. Entertain a motion to approve the April 14th minutes. Frank Brown, seconded Jim Cardillo. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, May 5th, 2022 minutes. Entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Jim Cardillo, seconded by Frank
Frank.
Brown. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Those minutes are approved. Next, minutes of May 12th meeting. Entertain a motion to approve those. Motion made by Bob Burton, seconded by Jim Cardillo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand.
Aye.
The ayes have it. The unanimously minutes approved. And finally, the revised minutes of May 17th, corrected minutes of May 17th. Entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Burton made the motion, seconded by Frank Brown. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye or raising your right hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it. The minutes, revised minutes of May 17th are approved. Thank you for that. Next, we'll go to report, Finance Department. Jody, any report today? You're muted, Jody.
Trying to find my cursor and see where it was. Yeah, so as you all know, we've been very busy with the budget process. Monday, the council spent the day looking at amendments to the proposed budget. We had a total proposed number of 46, and I haven't counted the number that were passed, but many of them were passed. Some of the more significant ones, as you know, I've talked to you about having a placeholder in the budget for the union agreements, and we had to increase that amount by $838,000. So that was an adjustment to the budget, and that was funded with additional ARPA funds. And then we've had some programs. We have a jobs training program that they allocated $200,000 for. And some other more significant community, our Office of Community Services received a couple of significant allocations for programs to get initiated to help some of our citizens. And most of those were funded by the reserve for one-time uses, which, as you know, is a fairly good size right now. So they're trying to use some of those funds for these one-time programs. And last night I finished reviewing our summary of all those amendments. So we'll be posting those today. Once we get final review of it, we'll post all the amendments and the effect of those. So we'll distribute those later. Well, on the procurement officer search, we had a candidate again who we were going to talk to, but he's now stepped out of the process. So we're back to square one again with that. We're starting the year-end financial statement process, trying to get a jump on that and get prepared early. My assistant finance director is determined to get that report out by December 31st this year. So she's working hard and trying to plan ahead. We are looking at the responses to our RFP for audit services for 22 and the future. We had 4 respondents. We've done some interviews with 2 of them. Jim Cardillo participated on that, on those interviews, and we're summarizing our results, and then we will be submitting them to the audit committee at their next meeting, and hopefully a recommendation. And then from the budget process and the amendments, we used the final CIP as approved to develop our bond ordinance, which we'll be proposing to council in early July. That gives us the formal borrowing authority to fund those projects. Okay, that's all I have on my list. I'll entertain any questions.
Question for Jody? Hearing none. Jody, thank you. I know that you guys have been very, very busy recently, and
Yeah,
I'm sure, or I hope it'll ease up for you in a little while.
yeah, gotta get some training in. I'm behind on my training, so that's
Yeah.
what I'm gonna try to do in the next couple weeks.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Turn it over to you. With respect to the collective bargaining agreements, let's just have a 30-second broad-based overview. And, if you can't focus on when we need to reconvene the fact for a special meeting, when we need to have something available for the council.
Sure. So thank you, Fred. The collective bargaining agreements, the fire union ratified their agreement on Monday night. That's been the thing holding up the forward progress on this. We completed the negotiations with AFSCME week before last, and last week they ratified. Both of the unions did. We finished police a while back, and they were the first to ratify, and now fire has ratified. So we forwarded you information on sort of an executive overview along with all of the agreements yesterday about noontime. Apologies, clearly it was too late for this meeting, but we're looking forward to a meeting to discuss those in full. We had a first reader with council on Monday for approval of the agreements. We'll postpone the second reader. It was scheduled for Friday, but we'll postpone that pending your comments. So I won't go into the details because we'll do that during the meeting that we have to discuss them in detail, but that's kind of where we are, is that the resolution for approval of the agreements was introduced, but we're going to put that on hold until we get your report, and then the council will consider your report along with our input to decide if they're going to approve that resolution.
Okay, David, thank you. Now, can you give us an idea of what kind of timetable we realistically and reasonably need to be looking at to schedule a special meeting?
Well, I can tell you that 4 years ago, when the 4 year CBAs were approved, it didn't happen until July. I don't know if you recall that or not. So it was well after the budget had been passed and the new fiscal year was started. What we would really like is for the council to be able to vote on the meeting at the end of July. So I think that's on June 27th. They'll have another regular council meeting. So that would be sort of ideal timing, is to get your report prior to that, so they can consider the resolution at that time and hopefully pass it, and we'll be done with it then. If not, then we'll push it back into July as was done 4 years ago.
Okay, thank you, David. We'll talk about a specific date when we get down towards the end of the agenda. Anybody have any questions about David, about the information he shared with us? And again, I don't want to get into the details of it, of the agreements and what was negotiated. We'll talk about that in detail after we've all had an opportunity to review the materials. Okay, David, thank you on that.
Fred, I do have just a quick question.
Yeah, sure,
David. Thanks. Thank you for sending over the agreements, David. Can you just please direct me as to which of the collective bargaining agreements apply to which classifications of city employees? Because I got a whole bunch. I assume I know one says fire on it, but I didn't want to make assumptions.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at the, and let me pull that up so I can just refer to it. So UFCW Local 400 is police.
Yes. Yeah. UFCW 400 is police.
Yeah. IAFF Local 1926 is fire.
Yes.
AFSCME 3162 is the trades. me just make sure that I have that right, because I always get those two mixed up. Let's see.
I believe, I think that's right. I think the 2563 or whatever the other one is clerical.
Yeah, and then the other one is the clerical. So 3162 is like public works, park and rec, transportation, the bus drivers. The clerical one is just that. It's all the admin type employees throughout the city.
And this
And then we have a whole
3406?
3406 is the clerical, ask me
Clerical.
clerical. And then we have a whole big group of non-reps and exempt. So that's, all the more white collars, all the engineers, the planners, all those types of people, the law office. And then the exempt employees, the directors, and yeah.
And
So
that's,
yeah, so that's the breakout.
thanks. And that's the pay scale one? That's the pay scale chart is applicable to those final category of workers you're referring to?
Yeah, let me pull that up real quick. So we have three different pay scales. We have the one that applies to ASME and the non-reps. We have one that applies to fire and one that applies to police. So there's three different pay scales.
Okay, the one that said annual pay scale with longevity information. I'm going by the attachments on the.
Yeah, so if you look down, the ones that say A are everybody but police and fire. The ones that start with F10 through 20, that's the fire pay scale.
Right,
So that's in the middle of that chart. And then at the bottom is the P, and those are the police.
gotcha. Okay, thank you. I just want to be able to know which is which.
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks for asking for the clarification, Joe. Much appreciated. Any other questions for David on collective bargaining? If not, David, do you have anything to add to Jody's report on the budget status?
Yeah, no, not a lot. We have another meeting on Friday tomorrow to approve the final balancing amendments for the budget. I think that's it. We had a long session on Monday. Started at 10, finished up about 10:30 at night. So it was kind of a marathon meeting, but a lot of good work was done, a lot of good discussion, and we got through all the amendments.
Thank you. Bob Burton, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I have a question concerning the Financial Advisory Commission's recommendation on the budget, the letter that we submitted on May 17th under item 2 of our recommendations. We questioned whether it was physically prudent for the city council to adopt a proposed operating budget absent conclusion of the collective bargaining agreements. And we cited a particular area of the city code that was of concern to us that led us to ask that particular question. Did the city council forward that concern to the city attorney's office? And did the city attorney render an opinion on whether it's appropriate for the city council to approve an operating budget absent conclusion or adoption of the collective bargaining agreements, which are to take effect during the fiscal year that's under consideration? Right.
So one of the council members, Alderman Savage, raised that issue of the May or the March date for approval of the CBAs and how that affected the whole budget. The city attorney, and I hate to speak for him because I'm not an attorney and he can certainly speak for himself, but felt like the budget could be passed and that date was, and I'm not even going to try to speak because I'm not going to do it justice. We'll try to get them on so he can explain that, but he felt like we could move forward. So we've got a placeholder in the budget for the fiscal impact of the CBAs. We had one originally based on the initial projections. We have one now based on the actual numbers from the agreements. If those need to change, because if the council doesn't approve the the CBAs as negotiated, we have to reopen them to negotiate them again, then those numbers can change by amendment during the fiscal year. So that would be the plan is we've got them balanced. We got the budget balanced right now by the numbers that are in the agreed upon CBAs that have been ratified by the unions, but haven't been approved by the council. So if anything needs to change as a result of the council's review, then the budget will be amended.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so we'll just have to await the city attorney's office presence in this meeting later on to get a further clarification as to what the rationale was for and response to that concern that the fact had raised. So is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, David, anything new on the Resiliency Authority?
So an interim executive director has been appointed. His name is Dan Neese. He was involved with the formation of the agreement, the initiation of the authority. He's just going to be there temporarily to work on trying to get it set up. So he's working with the county and the city on establishing a board of directors. So if any of you are interested in being on that board of directors for the Resilience Financing Authority, we're looking for people. The city gets 3 nominees to that, 3 members of the board. So we're in the process of looking for those right now. So please, if any of you are interested, let me know. As soon as they have a board, then they're going to start setting up all the governance for the authority. But the first step is to get the board.
Okay, thank you. And finally, any update on the status of the Hillman Garage replacement and the overall PPP?
Sure, yeah. So I'll do 2 updates. First is on the construction. If any of you have been past there, you know that the garage is down. The demolition is complete, but now they're cleaning up all the rubble from the demolition, but the garage is down. On the PPP, the financing, we're still dealing with that. As you know, the bond markets are kind of deteriorating almost each day. So that's become a challenge to try to meet all of the requirements that we're hoping to get from the financing. But we're still working closely with Morgan Stanley as the underwriter, and probably more importantly, Moody's as the rating agency, because we're trying to get the highest rating possible for those bonds. So AMRP, our developer, has the lead on that because they're doing the financing. But we're working closely with all of those parties to try to see what can be done to help the bond environment that we're in right now. So the demolition was done under the pre-development agreement, but to start construction, which means when they're ready to start foundations, we've got to have that financing in place.
Bob Burton.
Yes, David, 2 questions. I guess the first question, has the agreement been signed yet?
The pre-development agreement has been signed and was amended to include the construction. The concession agreement can't be signed until the financing is all worked out. Mm-hmm. So the concession agreement, because it depends on, all of what the concession payment is going to be and all the other terms of the financing.
The concession portion of the agreement, what was the amount that was anticipated?
25 million.
Okay. Is there any anticipation as to how that 25 million could possibly be affected given where the bond markets are going? Could that 25 million end up being less, more, or the same?
So Bob, that's what we're working real hard on, is to try to keep the 25 million intact and still do the financing with the way the market is sort of deteriorating, with rates going up and parking structures aren't apparently in favor right now with investors because of the long-term future of of cars and parking.
Mhm.
So those are some of the challenges, and that's why Moody is kind of driving the ship right now, because we have a target bond rating that we want to get to, and we're trying to work with Moody's to get to that.
David, does the city have a floor of acceptability on the concession part of agreement if it were to fall below 25 million?
So what our two goals were, there were two goals. That one was 25 million that we would roll over to City Dock. The other was to get $1 million per year as revenue from the waterfall that comes out the bottom of the revenue that we would be able to apply towards transit. So those are our two principal goals, and we've been holding fast on those. We think that the revenues are way underestimated, because are very conservative and are much lower than what they're going to turn out to be. So we have some flexibility on the $1 million, because we think that the projections are way too low, and we're optimistic that those numbers are going to be higher, but we're holding fast on the 25 million.
And if the 25 million is not achievable, are there provisions in the agreement where the city has available options to back out of the agreement or look for another partner, or whatever the case may be?
Absolutely, yeah. So we can always take over the financing ourselves. That's one option. Keep the team together and have AMRP as a fee developer instead of sort of an equity developer. That would be one option. Not to get into too much of the nitty-gritty detail, but one of the big issues is so they have senior debt and sub debt, subordinate debt. The subordinate debt has become very expensive. So that's really a part of it that we're trying to work through, is to try to see how we can bring down the cost of the subordinate debt.
Okay.
The subordinate debt is being issued by AMRP themselves, not through the bond markets. So we're getting fairly decent rates through the bond market, but the subordinate debt is the expensive piece.
Mhm.
And it's the subordinate piece that's growing because the interest rates are going up. So to make our goals of the 25 million and 1 million per year, the subordinate debt has to increase, and that's the expensive piece. That's the problematic part.
Given all the moving parts that you're dealing with right now, particularly on the concession part of the agreement, obviously time is of the essence when it comes to the markets and so forth. So is there a time frame that the city is working within to try to get to a conclusion on this part of the agreement, or is this open-ended, or
No, it's not open-ended at all, because we don't want to stop and start, to restart the construction effort. So the demolition phase is going to be finished in about mid-July. So we need to be able to proceed with construction in mid-July to start the foundations. So that's our hard deadline to get this financing finished.
Okay, very good. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the questions, Bob, and thanks for the comments, David. So anything more on the garage or PPP status? David, I'm not suggesting there is, but just want to give you the opportunity if there's anything more you want to add.
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Jim Cardillo, anything from the audit committee? You're muted.
The audit committee has not met. Next audit committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 20. There is a subgroup of the audit committee that is addressing the audit services for the city. Jody mentioned it earlier. It's comprised of 2 citizen members of the committee, myself and Caroline Ewing. Jody's a member, and Jody's assistant finance director is a member. And we are evaluating proposals that were received and doing scoring, and we will ultimately make a recommendation to the chair of the audit committee, Alderman Arnett.
Any questions of Jim? If not, Jim, thank you very much for the audit committee report. Let's go down to unfinished business. And I don't know if there's much to talk about in either of these items, but with respect to the pension and retirement benefits review, Is there anything on that that anybody needs to and want to report? My recollection is that as part of the budget process, there's going to be some funding for a study, some kind of study about pension benefits. If my recollection is correct, is that money still in the budget? And what's the plan for moving forward on that? Or am I dreaming as I do sometimes?
Well, no. I know that you had recommended that we do the study and we are planning on looking into it. There's nothing specific right now set aside in the budget. We have to talk to our actuary and employee benefit specialists to figure out how much it's going to cost us before we try to put something in the budget to look into that and to help us do the research. The state of Maryland still has no information posted about how entities can split off from the plan. So we don't have that. We're going to have to make inquiries directly through the state to get that kind of information.
Jody, do you have any anticipated timeline for having this work done? Not hold you to it, but I don't know if you have some thinking on it.
No, we haven't had any formal meetings on it. Tricia and I talked, Tricia, the HR manager, she and I talked about it yesterday about calling the state, getting the information on what process we need to do. And then we'll have to meet with the Office of Law as far as how to get these other experts involved in analyzing what's needed. And if we did something on our own, such as a 401k or something similar to that.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you, Jody. Any questions of Jody? No? All right. Spending affordability subcommittee, Bob, anything to report on that this month?
No, not at this time.
Not this time. Okay. Bob, just my recollection, because it's been a while since we talked about this. Where are you and your subcommittee in that process?
Well, we're in the process of reaching out to some of the vendors who provide the information, to both Anne Arundel County's spending affordability function and to the state of Maryland's spending affordability function to get an idea of the type of information they provide and how that information might be provided to the city of Annapolis if we were to choose to utilize those services. On top of that, we do need to reach back out to the county again to determine what synergies potentially exist between the county and the city to be able, if the city were to pursue such a function, to be able to perhaps minimize duplication of effort and perhaps even minimize potential cost or expense through sharing of information and so forth, given that the city is a subset of the county and some of the information that's potentially obtained by the county from these vendors might have some relevancy to the city and whatever spending affordability function the city decides to undertake in terms of understanding the current economic environment of the city itself as a independent jurisdiction.
Okay. Thanks for that, Bob. Do you have any target as to when you and your group hope to be able to complete this phase of the work that you're doing and have something back to the commission?
Well, I'm going to need to reconnect with Ed here because we last talked about it a month or so ago before we got into the budget, issues here that we've had to address. So my anticipation is, and we're behind schedule as it is right now, and I fully recognize that, is to try to get this wrapped up this summer here so that we can have something that could be of use if the city decides to adopt it in preparation for the FY 2024 budget cycle.
Okay, Bob, thanks very much for that. And it'll remain on the agenda for each meeting, and whatever you have to report will be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
That ends the unfinished business that I have. New business, as you all know, I believe yesterday, commission members were provided with a Public Information Act request from a member of the public requesting various communications between commission members and members of the city council regarding the budget process, regarding the capital budget and the operating budget from the end of April through the end of, I think the third week in April, April 24th or so, through May 31st. The city attorney's office is aware of this. All of us have an obligation to provide whatever information we may have on our private devices that is responsive to the request to the city attorney's office, to Ashley Leonard, by June 28th. Ashley will, and I've had a couple of email communications with her. She will review the documents that are provided to her and review them to see whether there's anything privileged in them that would prevent any one or more of the documents from being turned over in response to the request. But the first step in this process is for the Office of Law to gather any potentially responsive documents from respondents, and then cull them, review them and cull them to see if there's reasons why some or all of them should not be provided. I see that we don't have Ashley or anybody from the Office of Law here with us right now, but does anybody have any questions about what is being requested and what our obligations as commission members are in responding to the request? Bob.
Well, yes, Fred, I do have a couple questions, and it's disappointing that the Office of Law is not present, given the presentation of this PIA request. Since the inception of the FACT over 13 years ago, this is the first PI request that we've had. And I think that, the members of the commission should have availed to them the Office of Law to be able to ask any questions, given that it is our individual responsibilities to comb through our own records and provide what necessary information is requested so that all of us are in compliance. So, meeting this deadline here of June, I guess, what is it, 28, without having appropriate guidance or the access to that guidance in this particular meeting, given the nature of the request that's being asked, is certainly somewhat concerning here.
Bob, I think that the request and the communication to us was, if anybody has any questions, to reach out to Ashley Leonard in the Office of Law. And I think that her email is on some of the communications.
Ashley Leonard with the Stephen-Atlas Office of Law. Please leave a message with you.
And Ashley's email is aeleonard@annapolis.gov. So I've reached out to her a couple of times between yesterday and yesterday, and she's been very responsive. So I think that if any of you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask or discuss with Ashley, then feel free to do so. This is an individual obligation of all of ours. So anyway, go ahead, Bob. I see you're ready to raise your hand again, I think.
Well, yes, I am ready to raise my hand again. I guess just for clarification then, as I read the document, this is specifically asking for communications solely between the individual members of the commission with each other, and communications collectively and individually between the FACT and any alderperson that sits on the city council. There's no request for any documentation or communication between the FACT or individual commissioners and the administration, i.e. there's no request for information or communications between individual FACT members or the FACT in general between us and the finance director or the city manager or any other member of the administration. Is that correct?
That is what I read, and I have it in front of me. And I'll, just for the record, I'll read it. The request is seeking all communications, including text messages and emails, and including those on personal devices, between and among members of the Financial Advisory Commission, FAC, and to or from any member of the FAC and any alderperson between 4/11/2022 and 5/31/2022 pertaining to the proposed fiscal year 2023 operating and or capital budget. Those are the documents that are being requested from us as commission members. So you're right, Bob, it does not seek communication between any of us individually or collectively with the administration or staff, nor does it seek communication between us individually or collectively with the mayor individually.
Okay, and just for further clarification, I see the request comes from Teresa Sutherland. Is this the same Teresa Sutherland that was the former city manager for the city of Annapolis, which is David's immediate predecessor? Is that correct?
I know that it is from Teresa Sutherland. I would speculate that it is the same individual, but not so identified in the request, nor need it be.
Very good. Yes.
Question.
Yes, Chair.
I interpret, this is why I do need someone from the Office of Law. I interpreted that sentence to say between and among. That meant that communications among FACT members were included in the PIA. If it were strictly communications between FACT members and members of the city council or the mayor's office, those documents could already be obtained with the scrub that the MIT department is doing.
Jim, you're right. For instance, if I had a communication with you during that relevant 6-week period of time, that would be subject to discovery or disclosure. If you had a communication with Bob Burden, or I had a communication with Bob Burden, or I had communications with you and Bob Burden, those will all be subject to disclosure.
Okay, thank you, because communications among FACT members are included in the document requested.
Yes,
Thank you.
Bob, and then me here.
Yeah, I reviewed the Maryland Public Information Act Manual, which is the 16th edition from September 2021. And in that manual, they talk about records subject to discretionary disclosure. And they cite that records subject to discretionary disclosure include investigatory records, information related to academic, licensing, and employment examinations, and documents of a pre-decisional and deliberative nature.
Bob,
and-
let me just say this, if I may, Bob. I am aware of that, and I sent an email to Ashley yesterday evening and asked her to confirm that once she gets all the documents from all of us, then she will go through and determine what, if any of them, are may be protected from disclosure by virtue of a privilege. And what you're talking about is deliberative process privilege.
Yes.
So she's not going to take everything that we give her and automatically turn them over. There is a review process. And I see that Ashley has joined us. And rather than me trying to pair it, Ashley, good morning. How are you?
She's muted.
Ashley, are you there? I see your name on the screen, but you're muted.
We officially have a stalker.
Ashley, have you joined us? Well,
Yeah, sorry, I was having some connection issues. I'm here.
okay, good morning. We just started to talk about the process that I understand the things that you are going to go through once you receive all of the responsive documents or any or all responsive documents from the commission members in response to Ms. Sutherland's MPIA request. And the point that the issue Bob Burden, just raised, from the PIA manual, had to do with what I'll call the deliberative process privilege that I emailed you about last night. For the comfort and information of the commission members, could you explain, what process you will go through once you receive or when you receive responsive documents from commission members before deciding which, if any or all of them, need to or should be turned over to the requester?
All right, so generally, once I receive all the documents, including any email searches we do, I weed out any that I read out any that are irrelevant. So in this case, Ms. Sutherland specifically asked for things related to FY 2023 budget discussion. So if there's anything that slips through in any of the email searches or things that people provide that I don't think is responsive, I weed that out first. And then the second step is to apply what you were talking about is the discretionary denials, which is there is a denial that shorthand we call intra-agency discussions or records, in which the act does recognize that we need to protect communications that are sort of pre-deliberative, that they want to allow government employees, commission members, officials to be able to have discussions freely and frankly about issues without the fear of it being sort of held against them in the public realm. So generally what I do is I sort of pull, and I've been doing PIA requests now for about 10 years. I pull anything that I think is sort of in that realm, even in a gray area, to one side. And then I do a review with the city attorney for a final decision on what we're going to deny, which is not. But then, so, I mean, and I generally, I do try to read that law and that discretionary denial as broad as possible under the law to protect internal conversations. What would happen though is if you're having any conversations with members of the public or other third parties that are outside the city realm, those would have to be released because then it's no longer sort of an internal conversation. And anything that is more of an administrative nature, scheduling meetings, discussing, agenda, setting agendas, things like that, a more administrative, that would probably get released as well.
Okay, Bob, does that help answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, and like I said, I do the initial review. I send it to the city attorney. I often involve, I might send it to Director Jody and City Manager Gerald as well for a cut before I release anything, because I want to make sure everyone is comfortable and in agreement with what is being released. And like I said, I have done this for quite a few years, so some of it is sort of just a knack for knowing what's going on, but I will do my best to protect what I believe are your internal pre-deliberative conversations.
Thank you, Ashley. Any other questions of Ashley about the MPIA? Ed Meehan.
Yeah, just quickly, because there we had the comment, Fred, about what is covered by this, and I just wanted to make sure that we had Ashley's input. So as the phrase goes, not to over lawyer this, but as I'm reading this, there's references to communications between and among, and then the word "and" is used twice. And then finally, we see the phrase "and or." So that leads me to the question of, is this intended to capture communications which involve both a member of the FAC and an alderperson? Or is it intended to capture communications that may be limited to 2 members of the FAC? And so that's why I raised that, since it wasn't entirely clear.
Generally, the MPI law says that we have to read a request broadly and in favorable of the most disclosure of records. So I would probably do both. So I would probably do communications just between FAC members, and I would also probably do communications between FAC members and alderpersons. That's my reading of it, and in my reading as both the lawyer and as how the MPIA sort of suggests that we are required to read requests.
Okay, and Ashley, yeah, just said me again, just so to the extent that any of us have any such communications, we should just forward them to you.
You can print them out and bring them to me. You can forward them to me. I mean, like I said, I am going to do an internal search so that that will include the alderperson accounts. So that should pick up those sorts of things. So really what I would only need from you might be is, if you had them, just member to member communications that didn't have any city staff sort of copied on it.
Okay, thank you. Yep, thank you, helpful.
Okay, and again, Ashley, the deliberative process would also be part of that review of the documents. Is that correct?
Yes, I will apply that to all the records I receive.
Okay, because a lot of the work that we do is a deliberative process. I mean,
yeah,
we're
that's
not
what I would expect.
Yeah. I mean, we're not a policy-making body. We have no oversight authority. We're just basically an advisory commission. And a lot of our work depends upon receiving information in a deliberative process so that we can make informed advisory recommendations.
Yeah.
And by the way, again, those are advisory recommendations. They have no force they have no force whatsoever. I mean, they can be accepted, rejected, or whatever the case may be. So, but we are a deliberative body in that sense. So,
yeah, absolutely understood. And I was around when you guys got set up, so I do understand your role. The other thing though is, and so the deliberative process also protects like drafts. So if you guys are sending around draft documents, those would also get protected. What would honestly be released is, like I said, administrative stuff, communications with outside parties, the general public, and then any sort of final decisions, final documents. So that's sort of is what would not be protected, because once a final decision or a final document has occurred, then it's no longer, pre-decisional or deliberative. But those are the things I would be looking at to release, and then everything else I would be considering for protection and consultation with the city attorney.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that.
Other questions for Ashley? If not, yes, Jim.
I'm sorry, I did. If we have an email communication between a commission member and a city council member, can we assume that you're already going to obtain that and it doesn't necessarily need to be provided by us?
Correct. Yes. If it
Thank
has,
you.
if it has a city alderperson, or even I might do some city staff just to try and incorporate it, so that you really only need to be providing these things that would be commission member to commission member with no one else on it.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from commission members?
Also included in this request is any texts that went back and forth between commission members or between a commission member and an alderperson. Those texts, are those recoverable in terms of the communications between members of the Financial Advisory Commission and alderpersons? Or is that
No, we do not have that capability. We would have to go to the phone companies through a subpoena process to get those. So I'm relying in good faith that if you happen to have any of those and you're able to screenshot or take a photo of them and send them to me, then I will include them as part of the release. But I cannot legally go into personal phone records.
Okay, well, but nonetheless, and just, in the interest of full compliance, each member of the FAC needs to review their text messages and provide a screenshot or photocopies of those various text communications that may have occurred among each of us as, commission members individually, as well as between individual commission members and alderpersons. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I just want to be sure that we're in full compliance with the request.
Yes. Yes, but I mean, our standard, like I said, our standard response when people ask us for text messages or even phone records is that the city as a governmental entity does not keep those records. I can ask the people who individually keep the records to provide what they have, but I have no legal authority to access any sort of phone records on a mass basis.
Okay, Ashley, thank you very much. I appreciate you being a part of our meeting this morning and your availability for any further questions that we may have. As I noted earlier before your arrival, since the inception of the Financial Advisory Commission some 13 plus years ago, this is the first PIA request we've ever experienced. And so I felt it was important that each commission member understand what this request was and that we understand what we need to do individually so that we're in full compliance, with the request regarding our roles on this commission. So,
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Happy to help. And you are also welcome to reach out to me individually if you have any further questions, because it will probably take me, I'm expecting at least a full 30 days to respond. Depending on what the email search pulls back, I might ask for an extension, depending on how many emails it pulls. But I will keep you guys up to date on that.
Thank you, Ashley. Greatly appreciate your help on this. Okay. Anything else regarding the MPIA? Hearing none, our next regular meeting is July 14th at 8 a.m. So we need to schedule a special meeting for the purpose of discussing the collective bargaining agreements, hearing from staff, and seeing what, if any, comments or recommendations the FAC, chooses to make to the city council. So I looked at my calendar And I have 4 dates that I want to throw out. June 14th, 16th, 21st, and 23rd. Those are Tuesdays and Thursdays. So
Okay, you said 14th, 16th, 21, or 23. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay. Yeah, right now, all 4 of those days look good for me, so.
Okay.
I might want to note that the 14th is Flag Day. I don't know if that's a holiday for city government or anything like that, but.
Jim Cardillo.
21 and 23, I will be on vacation. Again, if necessary for a quorum, I will participate from Rehoboth if needed, but I would prefer to remain on vacation.
Okay.
Understandable.
Let's focus down on the 14th and 16th. Other commission members.
Those days are fine for me, Fred, either one.
I see Frank Brown shaking his head. They're okay for me. Bob.
14th, 16th are fine for me, yes.
Bob Burton, they're okay for you.
Yeah, 14th or the 16th will work
All
for
right,
me.
why don't we say the 16th at 8 a.m.? David and Jody, are they okay for you guys?
No,
No?
I'm gonna be in training. I'm gonna be out of Annapolis at training that day, both days. So I'll either have to send Julie my place or get somebody else, maybe Katie to sit in. She's more involved with the budget process, so I'll have to decide on that.
And I'm on vacation next week as well, but if need be, I can call in.
Okay, so we have a problem here.
I think it would depend on when my class, at what time the training starts. If there's, I don't know if they go as early as 8 a.m. They may.
Just bear with me for a second while I switch computers and look at my calendar. And you guys look at your calendar for the following week as well. I know we don't want to push it off, but I think it's important to have as many people as possible available.
If the 21st or 23rd works for other commission members, I could make time in the morning on the 21st or the 23rd.
Okay, thank you, Jim. How about 21st and 23rd for everybody else? David?
Jim, audit committee is on the 21st.
Audit committee, I think, is Tuesday, the 20th.
Now, Tuesday, the 20th is Juneteenth and it's a holiday.
And it's
so-
Monday the 20th. not
Monday the
Tuesday.
20th, yeah.
From a scheduling and coverage
Oh.
standpoint, having looked at the calendar myself, I can say that the 16th or the 23rd would be better. We do have that audit committee meeting on the 21st.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay,
how
so-
about the 23rd?
23rd it is.
Yeah,
23rd's fine.
Okay,
those are days I'm at training too. I don't know. I'll have to figure out what I'm doing. I think David will be back that week, but I'll have to have somebody else sit in for.
well, let me ask you this, David and Jody. I know we need to get it done. Is it killing schedule to push you off one more week if we have full participation?
Fred, I can't do the week of the 27th. I'll be out of town.
All right.
I would
Well,
rather do it one of these 2 weeks you're talking about because that Monday, the 27th is the council meeting where we would like to do the final approval. Pushing it beyond that is going to cause some issues.
Yeah, and then Fred, if that week, if next week works for the commission, then we will make it work for us.
So we're back to the 16th then.
16th?
Well, apparently so. David had indicated that if the 16th works for the commission, then he will make, the necessary effort to, be a part of it so that we can rely upon their knowledge and information.
Because let me say this,
That's correct.
I think it's critical that we have, staff there that's been involved in this negotiation process and understands what is in these agreements. We, have not, I haven't even looked at them yet. Have no idea what's in there other than what I read in the paper about the wage increases. So I'm sure we're going to need some background and explanation. Yes, Jody.
And on, in your email, there were summaries. It's a memo summary that's got all the changes to the agreement since last time. That's a good place to start. And I wanted to add that we could reach out to the HR manager, to Carrie Berger, and to Steve Silvestri, the attorney, if we need to have him sit in as well, because they were involved at all the meetings at police, and Steve was in police and fire.
Okay. Thank you, Jody. Yes, Bob.
Yeah, just one question, Jody and David. I haven't looked at the documents either. And what would be most helpful, if they're already in the documents that we received, that would be great. But if not, what would be the possibility of, as we look at each of the agreements, these agreements are going to affect pertinent line items within the budget, whether they be salaries or benefits or whatever the case may be. Is there a spreadsheet or a document that shows the delta, if you will, in terms of how these new collective bargaining agreements are affecting the budget relative to what the previous CBAs were?
So I think in that email, there was a PDF of a summary schedule of fiscal impacts. I'll check the email and make sure that was attached.
Okay.
It shows you by fund and by group, including the non-reps and the impact of those COLAs and bonuses on the non-reps as well. So it outlines everything for you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. So
I
what?
think Frank has a question, Fred.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Frank. Go ahead.
No problem. Sorry. I was just checking my calendar. The 16th may be an issue. There's a meeting scheduled for work. I have to check with my CEO to see if that meeting is still going to take place.
And what day is that?
16th.
Jody, can I clarify something that's in the packet for you all?
Sure. Good
Hi,
morning.
I'm Tricia Hopkins, the HR manager. I just wanted to let you know the item labeled staff report and fiscal impact. That's where you're going to find a copy of all the summaries. That's the highlighted information out of the memorandums of agreement per bargaining unit. And attached to that is Jody's fiscal detail. So in terms of what is the most valuable piece of information to open and take a look at, that would probably be your first choice, in my estimation, because that's going to give you a summary. As I said, it's both language and economic information that's in there per bargaining unit. It starts with the police unit, goes through the fire unit, and then the two AFSCME organizations. And so AFSCME 3162 is for your clerical technical. AFSCME 3406 is your labor and trades. If you want to know which titles are covered, that is in the actual memorandum of agreement in the CBA. That indicates which titles are covered, which and by position, which ones are in each bargaining unit. So you have that detail in all of those documents. But again, I think the most valuable piece for you to look at first and foremost would be that staff report and fiscal impact PDF document. That's a consolidation.
Now, there were 6 documents that we received, correct?
Yes, so you got also, in addition to that, which I just mentioned, you got these collective bargaining agreements that are what will ultimately have the representatives in both from the city side and on the union side sign as a full execution of the memorandum. So you have one for UFCW 400, which is police. You have one for IAFF, Local 1926, which is our fire union. And then the two AFSCME groups, one for the clerical technical 3162 and 3406 is labor and trades.
Okay, now what is attachment A called drop plan?
So there was a change that was negotiated to the drop benefit for fire. So that when we have agreements, we have attachments that are, such things as, in the case of the police department, they have their take-home car general order, they have their promotional general orders. So those documents are just attachments to the agreement because that's what we discussed in our labor negotiations. And if there are any changes to that, we need to also make sure there's agreement on those.
Okay, so that's relative just to fire? you
Just to
said?
fire,
Okay, so that attachment A is relative to the fire. Okay,
correct,
okay.
correct.
Tricia, for the benefit of those commission members who may not be familiar with some of this terminology, what is the drop program?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Fred? I think I need to turn up my volume on my
Sure.
computer.
For the benefit of those commission members who may not be familiar with the terminology, what is the drop program?
So that's a deferred option program for pension. So individuals who enter drop are basically saying, I'm going to accept the retirement benefit that I'm going to receive at a certain period of time. Drop for individuals that enrolled prior to 2018, when we did our 4-year agreement, they were in a 3-year drop program that started in, I think, 2012, if I'm not mistaken. That program allows people to hold their pension benefit at whatever calculation there was. There's no additional service time, but then they stay employed. And so they're deferring their actual receipt of their retirement by a certain number of years, and they get some financial benefit in doing so. That drop program was increased, and the calculation, the benefit calculation associated that was changed with the current agreement that expires June 30. And then what they negotiated in this collective bargaining cycle is an optional 5th year for fire, where they cannot increase the number of participants. Actually, the participant numbers have pardon the term, have dropped in number. And so those individuals that are signed up for drop under the new negotiated element can, at their choice, ask for a 5th year of drop as long as the numbers of participants haven't exceeded the allowable number. That keeps us in the control over the cost neutrality of drop by doing so, and it also gives the individuals a little bit of what they asked for in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
So just for clarification on the drop program, basically it's a deferral program where individuals that are in the pension program can defer their pension benefit for a certain period of time. And
Yeah.
if they do that, they get a benefit from that deferral. Is that correct?
Right, it's kind of like a return on their
Okay.
their monies.
And
The program is something that the county also has. It's a deferred retirement program that's been in a number of jurisdictions. I think
Okay.
Baltimore City might have started that.
okay, then part of the negotiation process is what that benefit would be then, correct? For deferral?
Correct.
Okay.
I think Jody has her hand up.
And just one additional follow-up question. So the benefit then and the newly negotiated CBA for fire, that benefit was increased then, is that correct?
Well, I mean, you could look at it as an increase, but really because they can't increase the number of participants, it's
Okay. So in other words, the number of participants would offset whatever potential increase would exist then, is what you're saying. Sorry, Jody.
Yeah, so it allows them, we take what they would receive as a pension benefit. And Tricia, you can correct me if I'm saying this wrong. During that time period, we take what they would have received if they had really retired, and it's earmarked for them. So it's accruing to their benefit within the pension plan. And at the end of whatever number of years they're in it, they then take that pension benefit out of the pension plan. So they're retiring and their pension benefits being set aside for them, but they are still working for the city, providing valuable services with their knowledge they've accumulated.
Right, and so the calculation of their pension at the time they enter drop is held, meaning that it's not going to increase with cost of living increases, that kind of thing, and salary changes, all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Tricia. Nice to see you
You're
here.
welcome.
Thanks for participating.
I just wanted to make sure you knew what to look at that would best benefit your.
Well, but any guidance we can get is much appreciated.
Okay.
So I am thoroughly confused as to what day we finally agreed upon, if we did. So if somebody can enlighten me, I think the final day was the 16th, next Thursday, but I can't be sure. Or maybe it was the 23rd. I have both of them circled. I didn't cross out one of them. So
I have the 16th on my calendar.
16th, I see heads shaking. There's no perfect date. So
I will have to get back to you, Fred. I'll have to talk to my CEO to confirm about that meeting for me on the 16th, because that
I'd
also.
love to have you if you can make it, but if you can't, I understand. All right, then 16th at 8 o'clock. I have no idea at this point how long that meeting's gonna be, but I suspect it's not gonna be one of those shorter meetings, because there's a lot of potentially material to have presentations on and for the group to discuss. So anything else for the good of the order? I didn't ask, is the 16th okay for Annapolis TV?
I'm putting it on our calendar now, and I will just talk to Mark later and make sure that he confirms that with you, okay?
Okay, he doesn't need to, just if there's a problem.
Yes, okay. If there's a problem, we'll reach out, but I have that on our calendar for now.
Okay, and Kim, if you would make sure, as you always diligently do, get out meeting notice with the login information, would be greatly appreciated. So anything else for the good of the order? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn. Frank Brown made the motion, and Jim Cardillo second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye or raising your right hand.
Aye.
And we are adjourned, and everybody, thank